It was also during this period that the canonical book of Acts was written to invest the Roman Church with hierarchical supremacy. In addition, the lost Gospel of Peter, purportedly the favorite of the Nazarenes, was clearly written to vindicate Pilate and therefore the Romans from the crucifixion, and to cast the onus upon Herod and the Jews. This gospel was once considered as important as the canonical gospels, or in the words of Reverend D.H. Stanton, perhaps even higher than some of them. But it fell out of favor and was discarded. Furthermore, as noted, the Nazarenes were Samaritans and enemies of the strictly Yahwistic Jews or Pharisees, and were obviously in cahoots with Rome at this point at least. The Acts of Pilate was also written to place the onus of Jesus' death upon the Jews and away from the Romans. In this book, Pilate is even represented as making a pitch for the Jews to follow Christ, comparing him to Moses. It's just a little snippet from the Christ Conspiracy, the greatest story ever sold by Acharya S. She will be my guest on blogtalkradio.com/the Stench of Truth this Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So join us if you want to have some fascinating discussion on the mythicist position of religious origins. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Stench of Truth here on YouTube. There are so many different topics of discussion that we could have as the political front heats up and worldwide disasters and events continue to haunt the news pages. I could probably do a half-hour video and not even touch upon some of the more important ones. But I think what I will do is I will try to encapsulate some economic issues in light of some of the political things that have come out and put things into perspective for people to understand, because what we're seeing is a concentrated war against the American middle class, the poor in this country, and the vast majority of Americans, as the wealthy and the multinational corporations and Wall Street, who are the real powers that be in this country. They are the American branch of the international globalist banking corporate syndicate. And it is their goal, their desire, and their scheme to create a feudalistic system in every country around the world where you have a class of virtual fucking nobility that have all of the wealth and all of the benefits of any government in any country around the world go to them. And every other single person, family, unit, or anybody outside of their group are the ones who have to pay for every one of those benefits that go to this wealthy oligarchical structure. And you see this played out every day. In Congress, we have a continued attack and assault on the Dodd-Frank financial reform legislation, which does not go nearly far enough in trying to rein in the excessive greed, fraud, and outright fucking theft of Wall Street against the people of America and against the government of this country as well. Yet, there are people who are still assaulting it because it does place a few minor, tiny curbs on some of the grosser excesses of the Wall Street machine. There is some call to end the war of bloodshed that continues to happen in Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, Yemen, and maybe countless other places where there are secret wars going on even now that we have no fucking idea about. But there seems to be some misapprehension amongst the people of the United States as to the costs of these wars. And of course, there is a massive cost when it comes to bloodshed, which is a separate issue, and reason enough to end the wars. But on the economic side, the wars certainly have been tremendously costly to this country. And for those two reasons, if nothing else, the war should be ended completely, totally, and right the fuck now. But on the economic side of things, the rise in the public debt and the deficit spending in this country, while contributed to by the wars, has largely been fueled by the Bush-era tax cuts, which have been extended by Congress and President Obama/Sotoro. And if you look at the numbers, you will see that the Bush-era tax cuts and the extension by Obama of them has been by far the greatest contributor to debt and the deficit spending of this country. And yet, what you have is a complete and utter, not only refusal to recognize this fact by any sort of media in this country, but you also have a brazen attempt by some of these political groups to scale back any attempt to rein in the fraud and fucking thievery of the groups who have benefited. And that is the most wealthy. Wall Street, corporations, and banks. And putting the onus on the people. And any benefits that they gain out of a government which, by its very fucking existence, is supposed to serve the interests of the fucking people. And not just the interests of Wall Street and the international banking cabal. And you see this played out everywhere. Just look at Greece for a perfect example. The fact of the matter is that the tax cuts to the wealthy and all of the attempts to dismantle any of the reforms placed on Wall Street are the single greatest driver of the supposed debt which the supposed Congress is so worried about trying to rein in, while at the same time you have these very same politicians crying and ripping their hair out in an attempt to prevent any kind of raising of taxes on the wealthy and or corporations. And certainly there's absolutely no talk of implementing a tax on Wall Street or a transaction tax on these groups. When this is the greatest cause of debt over the last 10 years. Go look it up yourself. You'll find that it's true. And yet they would have you believe that Medicare, Social Security, and a lot of these other programs which are designed to help individuals and families, particularly middle class and poorer people, are the big bugaboo and need to be tackled. It makes me puke, because what we have right now is not only do we have active war of death, murder, and bloodshed in countries that we have absolutely no business being in. Afghanistan, we have supposedly killed the supposed Osama bin Laden, which was the supposed reason for our invasion of Afghanistan. So therefore we have absolutely no reason to be there. End of discussion. Iraq was a total lie from the very beginning. and the continued incursions into Pakistan have led to continued bloodshed of civilians. Not to mention our incursions in Yemen and Libya. And Libya is a completely illegal action in every fucking way, leading to bloodshed and death. So all of these things need to be stopped. For the sheer weight of cost in human lives. But if you want to look at the economic problems in this country, and a lot of people are equating the wars with cost and the burden it places on our economy, and rightfully so, but you also need to realize that the greatest cost and the greatest cause of debt in this country is the fault of the fucking rich. The richest people, the most wealthy people, the multinational corporations, Wall Street, and all of their ilk are to blame for the debt and for the increased deficit spending in this country over the past 10 fucking years. So yes, point out the tremendous cost of war, but at the same time, do not fall for the trap, and that's what it is. It's a trap that's being laid out for you. That there's a tremendous economic cost to the wars, and there is, but it's not the main driver. So focusing on ending the wars, which of course the anti-war crowd in this country is completely silent. You can hear the crickets chirping, and if you go to find them, be sure to wipe the cobwebs out of your way, because it will likely be filled with cobwebs on any journey to find the anti-war groups in this country. But if they do decide to get active and they do point out the economic costs of the wars, remember that the wars primarily have a cost in human lives and bloodshed, which far outweighs the economic impact. Not to say the economic impact is not important, but compared to the costs of this country, or to this country, by the Bush-era tax cuts to the wealthiest, and the continued bailout of Wall Street banks, corporations, finance companies, and foreign banks by the Federal Reserve and the Treasury Department, with virtually no interest loans, quote unquote, which is then invested back into the Federal Reserve and given interest rates which are higher than the loan rates that they pay out. Therefore, it's a net increase to anybody getting the loans from the Federal Reserve. All of this combined is the greatest driver to debt in this country. And if anybody wants to talk about cutting the debt in this country, and they are not willing to look at raising those fucking taxes and making Wall Street fucking pay for the sham fucking fraudulent rape of this fucking country, then they better shut their goddamn mouth. Because they're not looking at the real fucking cause. And when you see these motherfuckers come out of the goddamn woodwork running for fucking president, who talk about lowering the corporate income tax rate and lowering the top tax rate even fucking more, and refusing to look at any kind of reform to the financial markets in this motherfucking shithole of a country, then what you're seeing is a complete and total disregard for the truth. And that is that the wealthiest are to blame for the fucking debt. And if you're not willing to look at that in any real calls to cut the debt, which is all a big fucking sham to be used to destroy Medicare and Social Security in this country, then you better shut your goddamn pie hole. Because you don't know what you're talking about. or you're talking a line that Wall Street is giving you by lining your motherfucking pockets with the fraudulent money that they ripped out of the system. I'm so sick of it, it makes me fucking puke. And yet this is what you have. This is what you see every day. And this is what you have to deal with. Don't lose sight of that, because we are definitely in a war. It's facilitated by politicians and government. But remember, government is not our ultimate enemy. The ultimate enemy is those who pay for and fund these candidates to turn your eyes away from the true drivers, the true movers and shakers behind the scenes, and to try to deflect your attention away from the rapers, the murderers, the thieves, the fraudulent fucking bankers, corporations, and the super wealthy who have systematically stripped this country of any fucking wealth it had, of all of its fucking jobs by outsourcing. And that's another issue right there. I talked about patriotism in a previous video. And everybody likes to talk about patriotism and wave their fucking flags for a shithole country that this place has turned into. But I have one question for everybody who wants to tout patriotism. And you hear this a lot from these right-wing people in the corporate party, the right side of the corporate machine. Talk about patriotism a lot and flag waving. I have this to ask these motherfucking shills who need to shut their big fucking yaps. When it comes to patriotism, why don't you talk about corporate fucking patriotism? Because corporations were supposed to, when they first came into existence, prove that they worked in the public interest. And every one of these motherfucking corporations who have outsourced to increase their fucking profit and strip jobs out of this country, where's their motherfucking patriotism? God damn it! And yet I don't hear a single fucking person in the entire political realm, whether it's Democrat or Republican, talk about corporate fucking responsibility and corporate patriotism. But god damn it, if there is a single fucking individual out there who calls into question this idea of stupid blind patriotism, everybody jumps on them for being unpatriotic and anti-government. Well, who's more anti-government? Me or someone like me who calls out the shillery in this fucking country and the complete sellout of the entire government to Wall Street and the wealthy in this country? Or a corporation who gets rid of 50,000 fucking jobs in this country and sends them to fucking Indonesia or the Philippines because they want to increase their fucking bottom line, and they give the fucking finger to this country, which gave them everything. Who is the real anti-government motherfucker? Who is the real unpatriotic one? Me or fucking GE? Or the oil companies? Or the auto fucking industry? Or countless other corporations who have sent their fucking production out of this country so that they can increase their bottom fucking line at the expense of this nation? You want to talk about un-American? You want to talk about fucking patriotism? I want to hear one motherfucker in government talk about corporate fucking responsibility and corporate fucking patriotism before they decide to label anybody in this country as anti-government extremist or unpatriotic. Thank you. Good day.